Bad Blood by Lorna Sage, read by Jenny Agutter. Grandfather's skirts would flap in the wind along the churchyard path and I would hang on. He often found things to do in the vestry, excuses for getting out of the vicarage, kicking the swollen door, cursing. And so long as he took me, he couldn't get up to much. I was a sort of hobble. He was my minder, and I was his. He'd have liked to get further away, but petrol was rationed. The church was at least safe. My grandmother never went near it, except feet first in her coffin, but that was years later, when she was buried in the same grave with him, rotting together for eternity, one flesh at the last, after a lifetime's mutual loathing. He had a scar down his hollow cheek, which Grandma had done with the carving knife. That, though, was when they were still speaking, before my time. Now they mostly monologued and swore at each other's backs, and he and I would slam out of the house and go off between the graves. One day we stopped to watch the gravedigger, who unearthed a skull, and Grandfather dusted off the soil and declaimed, "Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well." I thought he was making it up as he went along. When I grew up and saw Hamlet and found him out, I wondered what had been going through his mind. I suppose the scene struck him as an image of his condition. Exiled to a remote, illiterate rural parish, his talents wasted, and so on. On the other hand, his position afforded him a lot of opportunities for indulging secret bitter jokes, so in a way he was enjoying himself. Back then, in the 1940s, I thought that was what a vicar was, simply. Someone bony and eloquent and smelly, tobacco, candle grease, sour claret, who talked into space. His disappointments were just part of the act for me, along with his dog collar and cassock. I was like a baby goose, imprinted by the first mother figure it sees. He was my black marker. This was a village where it seemed everybody was their vocation. They didn't just know their place. It was as though the place occupied them, so that they all knew what they were going to be from the beginning. People's names conspired to colour in this picture. The gravedigger was actually called Mr. Downward. The blacksmith who lived by the mere was called Bywater. Even more decisively, the family who owned the village were called Hanmer, and so was the village. The Hanmers had come over with the Conqueror, got as far as the Welsh border, and stayed ever since in this little rounded isthmus of North Wales sticking out into England, the detached portion of Flintshire Minor, as it was called then, surrounded by Shropshire, Cheshire, and on the Welsh side, Denbighshire. There was no town in the Minor district, only villages and hamlets. Hanmer was very un-Welsh, and was a hole, according to Grandma, a muck heap. She'd shake a trembling fist at the people going past the vicarage to church each Sunday, although they probably couldn't see her from behind the dirty glass. She didn't upset my version of pastoral. She lived in a different dimension. She said as much herself. In her world there were streets with pavements, shop windows, trams, trains, tea shops and cinemas. She never went out, except to visit this paradise lost, by taxi to the station in Whitchurch, then by train to Shrewsbury or Chester. This was life. Scented soap and chocolates would stand in for it the rest of the time, and she'd evolved a way of living that resolutely defied her lot. He might play the vicar. She wouldn't be the vicar's wife. Their rooms were at opposite ends of the house, and she spent much of the day in bed. She'd stay up late in the evening, alone, reading about scandals and murders in the news of the world by lamplight, and she never answered the door, never saw anyone, did no housework. She cared only for her sister and her girlhood friends back in South Wales, and perhaps for me, since I had blue eyes and blonde hair and was a girl, so just possibly belonged to her family line. She thought men and women belonged to different races, and any getting together was worse than folly. The old devil, my grandfather, had talked her into marriage and the agony of bearing 2 children, and he should never be forgiven for it. She was short, about 4'10", and as fat and soft-fleshed as he was thin and leathery. So her theory of separate races looked quite plausible. Looking back, I can see that she must have been a factor, along
Sample complete. Ready to continue?